Hi friends, today I am going to review the book Gods of Management: The Four Cultures of Leadership, by Charles Handy. The mythological Greek gods embody contemporary management archetypes. The ancient Greeks saw their gods as more than theological deities. Each god represented specific interests and values. People decided which gods they would serve according to their sense of alignment with each deity's symbolic emphasis. Today, leaders can choose among 4 different management styles and corresponding corporate cultures represented by the mythological gods Zeus, Apollo, Athena, and Dionysus. Each culture, it will become clear, or each god, works on quite different assumptions about the basis of power and influence, about what motivates people, how they think and learn, how things can be changed. Each god symbolically embodies different leadership views of influence, power, human motivation, change and the future of work. Leaders must understand 4 Greek god-inspired cultures. Use the power of these Greek god-inspired cultures to help you navigate different contexts. The club culture, the organizational culture that Zeus represents, relies on divisions of labor, with those closest to the organization's center wielding the most influence and power, and all workers reporting to a central authority. Zeus-like cultures are pervasive in entrepreneurial organizations, investment banks, brokerage firms and certain startups. This culture values speed over quality. In such organizations, empathy hinges on trust and affinity. The role culture, Apollo's organizational culture, embraces rules, flow charts and order. Roles have more clout than personalities in this bureaucratic culture which values predictability and stability. Life insurance companies, state industries and local governments embody Apollonian culture. The task culture, Athena's culture, calls on teams to identify problems, find solutions and allocate resources in a continuous process. Athena, the warrior goddess, leads a loosely connected network of commando units, mostly autonomous teams working together toward a shared mission. Companies that thrive on variety or that are expanding, such as advertising agencies, consultancy groups and those launching new products, adhere to this culture. The existential culture, Dionysus, the hedonistic god of wine, rules existential cultures that attract those who want to rule their own destiny. Here, unlike in the other 3 cultures, the individual doesn't serve the organization. The culture exists to support individuals. For example, when doctors, artists, attorneys or architects work together, they cooperate to achieve individual goals. Managers have less status in such organizations, where people view them as capable of tackling unpleasant necessary tasks as a housekeeper might. Each mythological god has a different approach to changing and managing teams and to setting incentives. Each of the 4 cultures uses the power of thinking in different ways and has a distinct strategy about learning. For example, a Zeus-like leader is an intuitive thinker who learns quickly through testing ideas and making mistakes. Zeus's club cultures value learning through apprenticeship. Learning isn't an open activity, but is carried out secretively to avoid the appearance of weakness. Apollonian leaders are analytical, logical, sequential thinkers. They view learning as an acquisitive training process that prepares individuals for new roles. Athenians value continuous learning and team approaches to problem solving. They see areas that need improvement as problems to solve together. Athenian organizations value individual self-development, with team members often bidding for new roles. Dionysians tend to be flexible thinkers who prefer learning through experience. They resent anyone who tries to plan their future for them, and oppose hierarchical thinking. Many a Zeus will define himself as an organizational craftsman, an enthusiastic professional, and be both surprised and hurt by accusations of dictatorship. Each mythological god represents different management approaches to influencing, changing, motivating and rewarding teams. Zeus-like cultures enact change by replacing people rather than transforming them. Those who know powerful people wield the most influence. Power motivates Zeus, who rewards people by expanding their responsibility and networks. In duty-based Apollonian cultures, change means updating roles, structures or systems. Leaders reward and motivate Apollonian teams by expanding their formal authority and bestowing the status symbols that accompany greater responsibility, such as expense accounts and executive cars. Athenian teams change when leaders persuade their team members to agree to change, with individuals finding motivation in serving a common purpose. To reward and motivate Athenians, give them opportunities for self-development, variety in assignments and results-based paychecks. Dionysians resent those who try to influence them, so they approach any change as a negotiation. They regard being creative and improving the world as rewards in themselves. Four forces shape organizations and their cultures: size, life cycles, work patterns and personnel. Four factors influence your workplace culture. Size: larger organizations tend to be more Apollonian, because their leaders rely on formal control and coordination methods. As teams grow to larger than 10 people and organizations become more impersonal. Life cycles: organizations that cycle through change most quickly tend to be Athenian. These rapid-paced organizations prioritize problem-solving over administrative capacity. Work patterns: organizations can work by following several different kinds of patterns. They can use flow patterns, such as assembly lines, that use one section's work as input for others. They can follow repeated, copy patterns, as in branch banking or gasoline stations, and produce identical work in each separate section. They can select unit patterns for independently operating sections, such as independent small businesses. Copy and flow patterns work best in Apollonian cultures. Organizations that use unit patterns tend to be Zeus-like. But they can be Athenian or Dionysian when teachers or other professionals work in collaborative environments. People: the generation into which you were born, your early experiences and your environment form your cultural expectations and preferences. National differences contribute to variations in corporate cultures. Organizations develop different default cultures, in part due to their social and national contexts. When social psychologist Gert Hofstede researched the cultural differences of various nations, including interviewing personnel in 40 countries, he concluded that national differences manifest themselves most sharply in how people perceive uncertainty, individualism, masculinity and power. In short, it depends on whether people approve or disapprove of hierarchies. For example, in Austria and Germany, people tend to dislike uncertainty. They value equality over hierarchy, embrace stereotypical masculinity and are wary of individualism, making their organizations appear more Apollonian. The principles of management may not be as universal as some would like. Leaders can strive for balance by using management approaches each of the four mythological gods inspire. For example, many successful organizations in the United States make their more Apollonian cultures viable by incorporating the leadership qualities of Athena, Zeus and occasionally Dionysus. Different types of organizations tend toward different cultural styles. Apollonian cultures inspire resistance because they're too complex, alienate individual workers and don't align with modern values. As individual imperatives, such as increased personal choice, disrupt organizational imperatives like corporate growth, the dominant Apollonian cultural model must contend with three facets of resistance. Complexity. Critics argue that Apollonian structures are too big to properly manage complexity. Apollonian cultures tend to work best when routine work takes place in stable environments. They can fail when uncertainty overwhelms them. Leaders with higher levels of education tend to better cope with complexity and the requisite abstract thinking. Individual alienation. Apollonian organizations can prioritize roles, many of which are mundane, over the growth of the people who fill them. Some argue that money is no longer a sufficient incentive for working and that this is a good thing. Shifting values. Societal norms and values are changing to favor Athenian and Dionysian cultures that support personal expression and collective action over Apollo's impersonal, conformist culture. While many people now expect workplaces to be more democratic, Apollonian leaders tend to ignore democracy. Top-down decision-making may be more efficient, but Apollonian leaders should realize that workers in societies that lack scarcity regard the cost of efficiency as too high. Apollonian domination is ending as Dionysius, Athena and Zeus prove emergent. To remain relevant, Apollonian organizations must change to prioritize the needs of the individual. Using federalism as a model, combining interdependence and independence, successful future organizations will resemble cities of villages or smaller groups that work together toward a broader vision. Athenian and Dionysian values will become the new norms, so organizations that cling to rigid hierarchies and stifle debate won't survive. Imagine problem-solving Athenians, Dionysian professionals and craftsmen, and Apollonians working alongside one another, with a Zeus-like center uniting them in a common purpose. The gods are changing. Organizations are restructuring and rebalancing to stay alive. Today's emerging corporate culture operates on the basis of management by consent. Employees expect to be asked to perform their jobs, not told. The term management seems dated. Many professionals dislike the notion of someone managing them, since it implies control or manipulation. Organizations should no longer view people as resources to deploy, but as valuable, contributing individuals with inalienable rights. Organizations must adapt to survive as they replace their dominant gods. Organizations are restructuring and adapting to survive, resulting in cultures that no longer favor their old mythological gods. Societal shifts underway include: 1. The move toward a more Dionysian society that values credentials or other evidence of continuous learning and retraining. 2. The decline of long-term employment, and the emergence of a more contractual economy. 3. Changes to norms surrounding ownership in the form of cooperatives or discounted shares for workers. 4. New paradigms or assumptions about the nature of work and society. 4. For example, women dramatically change workplace norms as they gain power and influence. Leaders must not risk dystopian scenarios in which people endure increasing splits along socio-economic lines, which divide those who work from those who cannot keep up. If your organization cannot envision change, your competitors or industry disruptors will overtake you. Takeaways. 1. The mythological Greek gods embody contemporary management archetypes. 2. Leaders must understand 4 Greek god-inspired cultures. 3. Each mythological god has a different approach to changing and managing teams and to setting incentives. 4. Four forces shape organizations and their cultures: size, life cycle, work patterns and personnel. 5. National differences contribute to variations in corporate cultures. 6. Apollonian cultures inspire resistance because they're too complex, alienate individual workers and don't align with modern values. 7. Apollonian domination is ending as Dionysus, Athena and Zeus prove emergent. 8. Organizations must adapt to survive as they replace their dominant gods.